The team are being understandably cautious about hailing this as the breakthrough, which will see them continuing such form for the rest of the season, but it was clear that around the sequence of slow wall-lined corners in Montreal, the car for the first time gave its drivers a front end in which they could feel confident, allowing them to attack the circuit. The new front wing, introduced in Monaco, is believed to be at the heart of this step-change improvement in the car's behavior. Talking a few weeks ago about the car with the original wing, Lewis Hamilton commented that the slower the corner, the less the car wants to turn. What Hamilton was describing was just one manifestation of a fundamental aerodynamic problem. The original wing, with its legality tube top flap keeping it attached to the nose, as demanded by the regulations, but which allowed a big expanse of space at the inboard end to energize the airflow traveling down the back of the car, gave the car a general understeer balance. As teams have got to understand these ground effect cars better, they have been able to run the cars ever lower without inducing bouncing, giving big downforce gains. As Mercedes lowered their ride heights, so the front wing would begin operating in ground effect at higher speeds. Suddenly, the car would have too much front grip, giving it a nervous balance at higher speeds. So the drivers found themselves trying to understand a car which had not enough low-speed front-end grip and too much at high speed. There was not a happy window of balance in between. The bigger the spread of corner speeds for the circuit, the bigger the problem. In order to keep the front wing out of ground effect at higher speeds, Mercedes were having to run at a higher than optimal ride height, therefore surrendering a lot of downforce from the underfloor. How does a front wing operate in ground effect? Just as with the Venturis within the underfloor, as the lower surface of the front wing nears the ground and the gap between the ground and the wing narrows, the air accelerates massively. The faster the air is moving past the lower surface of the wing, the greater the pressure difference between its top surface, higher pressure, and lower surface, low pressure, and the greater the downforce. The problem is that the downforce increase is not progressive, but very sudden in the last few millimeters. As the car's speed increases, so the downforce compresses the suspension and reduces the ride height. When that speed took the ride height below a certain threshold, the ground effect of the front wing would make it suddenly work very powerfully. So although the original wing was feeding the rear of the car well, as it went into ground effect at high speed its gains still overpowered the rear. In Canada, Technical Director James Allison explained how the new wing has addressed the problem. The front wings on these cars are very big, and they probably like being near the ground most of all, and that tends to make a car get more nervous as it goes faster, because proportionately more is moving to the front axle than you might wish. And so you're fighting that with these rules. And the more you find downforce near the ground, the worse that gets. The previous wing is now in the past. It allowed us to create the discontinuity in a wing that was anticipated by the rules to be relatively continuous. And that discontinuity allowed a bit of vigor to be injected downstream of the front wing. There is always a tendency for low-speed understeer and high-speed oversteer. But the more extreme you make it, the more tricky the car feels to the driver. You can do things with the mechanical balance to counteract that, but if you take away the aerodynamic unhappiness that mechanical balance is fighting, then you can have a less extreme mechanical balance migration and a car that feels more consistent and predictable to the driver.